Hello and welcome to Give and Take, the virtues in life. And today's topic is the power to discern. And we are fortunate to have Sister Gayatri with us here again today. And so we will start with the image that I chose, which is a pile of books. We can see that now. And I thought of these books and I said, first of all, they're balancing. And the other thing is there's so many of them. So discern, so my discerning would be which one of those books to choose. And I'd even go a step further and say, if I choose one, I better not choose one that's in the middle because they may all come tumbling down. So I better make sure that I make the right discerning move. So at this, I will now hand it over to Sister Gayatri. And I'd like her to talk about that great power of the power to discern and how somebody would use it in a situation like that or any situation. So, welcome.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that you're using the power of books for the power to discern.
Okay.
And that immediately puts discernment within the realm of the intellect, within the realm of, the intellectual. Mm-hmm. But discernment is actually a whole power. It requires elements of the whole being to discern.
Okay.
So it is not just an intellectual exercise. Even if I am choosing a book, and before that choice actually happens, before I choose to do something, I'm discerning before I make the choice. And so in the process of discerning, I may be focused on the name of that book, the author of the book, maybe even recommendations that were, that I had in relation to the content of the book. Some people within the discernment of whether this is the book they want to read would also have a touch and a feel of the book. They would open it and maybe start from the back of the book, the last chapter of the book. And so there are many elements there in which I am trying to understand what it is about this book that I would like to have as part of an experience, and so my discernment is working. But along with the actual intellect at work, and the intellect is my cognitive ability, my ability to see things like in black and white,
Right.
There's another element that discernment is drawing from within me, and that is my feelings. How am I feeling about it? What are the dynamics of those feelings that is informing this decision or this choice that I'm about to make? And then even beneath that, beneath the feelings, beneath the cognitive, beneath the feelings, there is something that and I think we rarely do it, we're doing it more so now than maybe in the past, in which I'm connecting to the purpose. Well, what is the purpose of reading this book? What will it bring to me in terms of the enriching side of it? What would it leave with me in terms of making me better, to understand something better, to appreciate something better, to know historically about something? What is it that is informing the purpose? And so discernment has got all these different elements to it. It is as if it's taking me, my discernment is taking me in the direction I want to move before I actually make the decision or before I actually choose. And so discernment for me is very much connected to purpose, but it's also connected to the direction I want to move into.
Okay. So now, Sister Gayatri, as I'm listening to you, I would feel that it also has some connection to being intuitive. If I choose this, if I make the power to discern, and I'm making it in the right context, Am I doing it intuitively, or I'm doing it from my emotions? So would that play a part in the whole discernment?
Of course. I mean, intuition definitely would play a major role in my discernment. But for me, intuition is more than a gut feeling. Usually we say my intuition is telling me, and it's a gut feeling that this is what I should have, even if the book wasn't recommended to me, or the feel of it isn't something that I'm being drawn to, or the content, or whatever. Those are factors that's not actually enough for me to say yes, to make the choice that this is what I want to do, or this is what I don't want to do. And so the intuition is then going to kick in, and then I would say, oh, this is my gut feeling. I'll pick this book up, I'll let the pile drop because I want the one in the middle. I'll upset the balance, or I'll just take them down orderly depending on my nature. And this is the one I'll read, and this is the one I'm going to take. Now that intuition is more than a gut feeling, because a gut feeling is something that's coming from the senses. It's coming from the body. But more than just an intuition, it is also like a memory of something that is informing that choice. So the discernment is usually connected to memories that we carry. And so when I'm not able to discern it just absolutely at the cognitive level in terms of black and white, and these shades of gray start entering, I'm accessing what is called my memory bank. And within the memory, there are going to be certain things that will inform me coming from my discernment that will be connected to the intuition, but it's deeper than the intuition. It's more the feelings of past experiences that I carry that's determining for me the direction. So the discernment is kind of drawing me into a direction that intuitively I know, but more than intuitively, it's like a memory return that is working with the intuition and is leading me in the direction.
Great. What's coming to my mind also is, say, like a major decision that one would have to make. And people have this way of thinking that it's either right or wrong. I don't see a right or wrong. What I see is there's a right or an indifference in regards to how it goes. So I would relate that to that gray area you were talking about. So when someone does that and they feel like, oh, I made the wrong decision, how would you apply that discerning to that person feeling like you didn't make the wrong decision, it was just a decision that had to be made?
Yes, it may be a decision that has to be made, but once the decision is made, I can say that. Just to have peace of mind, that the decision was made, and that decision was made in the best way I knew how to make it at that time. But for discernment, it usually calls on someone before I make the decision to kind of explore an inner domain of my being. Because there is a deeper a realm to discernment before the decision. And that deeper realm of discernment is a realm in which I am reflecting on what it is that is going to emerge out of my inner being, and what it is that I'm having to make a decision in relation to that's coming from the outer, my life on the field, as opposed to my life in my inner realms of experience. So it's like the life of action and the life of being. So when these two, it's like these are the two parameters that I'll have to discern now, that the discernment is going to be taking place in this space of the being, what's inside of me, and out of the doing that is outside of me. Because ultimately, discernment must lead to a decision, and decision must lead to an action. And so, but before the decision or the action, the discernment is taking place. Now, what happens to us normally is that whatever is happening on the outside, on the field of action, in the realm of action, that is what I, the being, am focusing on. So I'm looking at all the different elements of the situation that can and cannot be, that would and should and could be. And so I'm kind of minutely dissecting that field. And I'm calling it discerning. So I'm discerning all the details, all the elements at all the levels to see what would be the best decision here. Mm-hmm. So for instance, if something is going on with my body, and I have to come to a decision whether to do this or not,
right,
I will Google to the ends of the earth on that subject to find out, right?
That's not a
or
good idea.
I would have opinion upon opinion upon opinion on what it is that is good and not good for me to do this. Mm-hmm. And so I would like explore every stone there. I would leave no stone unturned. Mm-hmm. But that is at the level of the physical,
right,
for me to discern. Mm-hmm. Now, if I only discern at the level of the physical, of the action realm of my life, then after the decision is made, if it's a good or bad decision, then I'll have to sit back for my own peace of mind and say, I did all this work. I examined every little bit of thing. And then I took the decision. So I did put the effort in, and at the end of the day, this is what I thought was best, and I did it. But maybe, my best wasn't good enough. Right. So I have my peace of mind now, and I have to accept it. Mm-hmm. But I think that if we also focus, that's good. That's not a bad thing to do. It's good. Right. I've done my homework. I know exactly what's going on. But then there's another level, which is in the realm of the being, on the inside. Mm-hmm. So I will also be discerning the way I am understanding it. When I'm doing all these things on the outside, I'm also kind of looking within. How am I understanding it? What are the elements of it that is giving me a sense of this is something that deep within me is giving a clarity, an inner clarity.
I like that, an inner clarity.
Yes, that this is
instead
where
of an
I want to go.
external clarity, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So it's not just a clarity of 1 + 1 = 2, the mathematical part of it,
right, or
the scientific part of it, but it is also I have to look within, well, how does that make me feel? What direction am I feeling is the right? Because after I've examined the elements on the external, I may have 4 options. Now I have to discern between these options of what is the one I want to choose.
Right.
So then that's where I have to go in and say, okay, I have 4 options I've come up with. Now how do I look at it? So I will go within, I will reflect on it. I will see how it makes me feel. And there is that inner voice. One would be the voice of the outer world, the voice of logic. But there will be an inner voice. It is like the voice of my conscience. It's like the voice of it's the intuitive voice as well. It's the voice of the conscience, but it's also the voice of my soul that would say, yes, this is the direction you should take. Right. So the discernment from within takes a deeper meaning to what it's the decision I need to make or what's the choice I need to make. But along with the meaning that it gives, that discernment, it gives me the power of clarity.
Right.
And that power of clarity, I would immediately say, yes, this is the one I will go with.
Great.
Now, that one that I will go with, because it's supported from the inner works, the inner efforts that I'm making, from the meaning part of myself and from the the deeper sense of direction that is coming from the wisdom within, from the feelings within,
Right.
from that voice of conscience within, then in choosing or making that decision that this is the option I want to go with, then the strength from within me emerges into that decision I'm going to be making.
Right.
And it will work. It will work for me because the strength I am, that's emanating from
I like
within
that,
me,
the strength
and I am giving
Mm-hmm.
to the decision that I am about to make and the action I'm then able to take. The discernment is a power that gives strength to the decision and gives strength to the action. And that's my success. And invariably, it will work.
I love that, the strength I am. That's such a beautiful statement. If we could just constantly say that to ourselves, we would be successful, as you mentioned, but we always want to go outside of ourselves. Google, call a friend or a family, and then you've got a barrage of all this information, and then it causes a conflict, and you're not able to really make that rational decision or that discernment. Yeah. We've been talking about, if we can go through, is it 3 points, 3 steps into how you would do the discernment?
Yeah. Well, I think the first step is that before I make a decision to act, I must take some silence. I must give myself some space, which is silence, to discern. So the first step would be silence before the decision, the choice, and before the action. The second step is, what do I do in the silence? So in the silence, I would, as if, I'm reaching into myself and I am connecting to a deep sense of purpose. What is the purpose of making this decision? What is the purpose of doing this action? So now I begin to discern, what is it I really want? What is the direction? I'm asking these questions of inquiry within. What is the direction I really want my life to be going in? What is the meaning I'm looking for? What would be the strength that that meaning would give to me? And then what is the clarity that it's bringing to the purpose that would be my anchor? Because a purpose is like an anchor. So that would be the second step. It would be like I start this internal conversation with myself. And this internal conversation is anchoring me to my purpose. Now, once I feel that this is my purpose is I want to success. I want a success that will bring about a win-win situation. Or I want to have a relationship that will be nurturing. Or I want my body to be healing because of such and such a situation that's happening, whatever may be the reason. But I connect to that purpose with a clarity, and then that gives me the strength. Now, the third step is I take that strength, once I've discerned that this is what I want, at the level of the experience of what I want, at the level of meaning-making, sense-making, but also purpose-driven, then I'm going to take that experience, which is my being, and connect it now to the decision, which is before the action of what it is I want. So my decision would not be necessarily self-centered, like survival of the fittest. I want to survive. That won't be the decision that's coming from that depth of the 3 points.
Right.
But the decision would be, it would be more holistic. It would be, I just don't want my heart to get better, but I want my whole body to get better. It will be more holistic.
Right.
I just don't want myself to get better, but actually I want to get better within a system that would serve me the best. Right? And I don't want just to get better with my whole being in a system that serves me the best, but what can I do in return for that system and for my body in terms of the sustainable part of it. And so once the discernment leads me now to take a decision with these elements, then when that action is taken, the action is already kind of influenced by those other elements of the discernment that I did, of the decision that I'm taking, and now the action would be accordingly.
I really like that, because you're really giving yourself the time to really go into all different aspects, whether it be intuitive, breaking it down, unpacking it, connecting with it, understanding with it, and make a firm decision, as opposed to, as you say, outwardly making the decision. It's time for you to get quiet, step inside, focus, and make a clear, intellectual,
emotional, mental, and spiritual decision.
Thank you. Exactly.
It will require
right. So it's good because, and it's a great, those 3 steps are fantastic, because there's so much information out there, but I think this is a nice little niche, what we're doing, the 3 steps, because it's, everyone says, oh, do this, do that, and you can do that. But how do you gain that? And so when you go through the steps, they say, okay, I get that. Step 1, let me write that down. Step 2, let me write that down. Step 3, let me write that down. And now I have a nice plan. I have a nice scheme of elements to put in to a personal plan for myself and maybe for somebody else. So it's good that and that's why we're also doing these meditation commentaries, because as you said, it's that silent, number 1 is that silent, reflective step that has to be done first, so that you know you're really coming from a place of not reacting, right? And not responding through the emotions only. All right, so at this point we're going to do and wrap up with a nice meditation. So whenever you're ready, it's all yours.
Okay.
Okay.
Before we do the meditation, I just want to say that with these 3 steps, you might be saying, well, you know, sometimes I have to make a decision within a minute, within a second. Where would I get the time to do those 3 steps if I have a second to make a decision? Well, I think that if we practice it when we do have the time, and we consciously allow ourselves not to be rushed into decisions, and then further rushed into actions that we spend our lives regretting, or spend our lives thinking, was this the right decision? Once I ask myself that question, was this the right decision, I know that I didn't give myself the time to discern before I made the decision. Okay. So if we practice it when we have the time, then when we have to make those in-the-moment decisions, we would have the capacity to do it in the moment. And our decision would be made on a discernment that we have refined to such an extent that the discernment power works for us in our favor when we just have less than a second to make a decision.
Beautiful, thank you.
So this meditation piece, what I'd like to do is to invite you all to sit and not just think of an action you want to do, maybe not at all, or a decision you have to make, but let's just look at this process of discernment, and let's just experience what it feels like when I have to discern. So as I said, the first step is to become silent. It's to turn my thoughts and my feelings and my ideas and my opinions away from what's happening out there, away from the action, away from the decision. And let me focus it on what it is that I want. What are my thoughts telling me? What are my feelings saying to me? In the inquiry of my deeper self, what is the meaning that I want to bring to my life? What direction is this meaning going to take me toward? And what is the purpose behind the meaning and the direction? Just don't think about the purpose. Just don't feel the purpose. Become the purpose. Let the clarity of the purpose permeate your being. This clarity emerges into my decision and into my action.